At exactly 4:14 a.m. on June 24, 2025, a single Ukrainian drone changed the trajectory of the war in the Black Sea. For 27 minutes, a Turkish-built Bayraktar TB2 drone had been circling 18,000 feet above the water, completely silent, completely invisible, watching a Russian Cerna-class landing craft thunder toward the western shore of Kherson. The Russian crew had no idea they were being tracked. No radar ping, no warning. Just a quiet shadow in the sky, patient, watching, waiting. The TB2 had launched from a hidden airfield near Mykolaiv at 2 a.m. The Black Sea was pitch black. Russian air defenses, barely active. Their radar operators, exhausted and distracted, had no clue a precision-guided hunter was now gliding past their S-300 coverage zones. This wasn't some off-the-shelf drone. The TB2 was built for stealth and endurance, able to fly nearly 27 hours non-stop with a Canadian sensor ball so sharp it could read a license plate from 20 kilometers away. Its MX-15D multispectral camera made the frigid Black Sea glow like a canvas, where every heat source lit up like a torch in the dark. By 3:30 a.m., the drone reached its designated patrol zone, a rectangular airspace corridor, 40 kilometers long, 20 wide, strategically placed over the main Russian approach lanes to Kherson. And then it happened. At 3:47, the operator spotted something. A faint white streak on the infrared screen, something moving fast, leaving a glowing thermal wake. He zoomed in. There it was. A Cerna-class fast landing craft, built for beach assaults, shallow draft, jet propulsion. It could carry 30 troops or a tank, and it was slicing through the sea like it was on a schedule. But what made this sighting different was what came next. Two more vessels. 5 kilometers behind the lead boat, two more heat signatures appeared. Same class, same course. A full amphibious convoy. The operator tagged all 3 targets. And then he saw the people. Through thermal imaging, 24 bodies stood on the deck of the lead craft. Not naval crew, no helmets. These were infantry, tactical vests, rifles, packed tight, shifting like they were getting ready for something big. At 4:10, the picture was clear. They weren't just patrolling, they were heading straight for a beach west of Kherson, the same location Ukrainian scouts had flagged for suspicious activity the week before. The operator didn't wait. He picked up the secure line and called it in. Target confirmed, requesting clearance to engage. On the other end, Ukraine's 383rd UAV Command Center, senior officers were already watching the feed. What they saw next forced a decision. One strike could stop a covert operation dead in the water, but firing now would also reveal that Ukraine had deep drone coverage this far south. It was a gamble, but one they were willing to take. At 4:15 a.m., the order came through, cleared to engage, and the clock started ticking. With clearance granted at 4:15 a.m., the operator's mindset shifted instantly, from passive surveillance to kill mode. His target? The lead Cerna-class landing craft, now just 15 kilometers from shore and moving at 30 knots. That gave him minutes, not hours, to prepare the strike. The TB2 broke from its racetrack patrol pattern and banked left. Its mission software plotted a new trajectory, putting the drone behind the convoy. Why? Because the MAM-L missile, weighing just 22 kilograms, works best when flying along the same direction as the target, a tail-on shot that minimizes mid-air course corrections. The drone adjusted altitude slightly, locking the onboard camera onto the rear of the lead vessel. The image sharpened. Troops clustered on deck, some pacing, some sitting on crates. Thermal scans confirmed at least 24 warm bodies, but something felt off. The operator zoomed in. There were crates, lots of them, lashed to the rails with industrial cable. Oversized, not gear bags, not spare parts, not normal. One crate bore a bright warning stripe, standard marking for explosives. These weren't reinforcements. These were saboteurs. They weren't here to fight. They were here to destroy infrastructure behind Ukrainian lines. The operator toggled the fire control system. Laser designator, Green. Target lock. Confirmed. Missile status. All systems go. The Cerna was still moving straight, no evasive action. It had no idea death was falling silently from the edge of space. Then, a problem. Just as the operator prepped for launch, his screen blinked red. Laser error. Recalibrate required. No laser equals no missile lock. He swore under his breath. At 18,000 feet, the TB2 couldn't rely on GPS-only targeting. The MAM-L was a semi-active laser-guided weapon. The target had to be painted, precisely, for the entire 40-second flight. He did what every tech in the world has done since the dawn of machines. He rebooted it. Cycle off. Wait 10 seconds. Back on. The system reset. Laser, online. Target, reacquired. But time had passed. The lead vessel was now 7.8 kilometers out. The engagement envelope was perfect. He could wait no longer. But then something else changed. The two trailing vessels, 5 kilometers back, suddenly split. One veered north. The other angled south. They were forming a wide perimeter. This wasn't a landing. This was a coordinated infiltration. He had 3 remaining missiles. He could strike again, but he needed to hit this boat first, the convoy's brain, the one likely carrying the team leaders, demo experts, and command equipment. His eyes flicked between screens. Range, 7.8 kilometers. Wind, light. Laser locked. Crosshairs steady. This was it. At 4:47 a.m., the operator gave the command, and the missile dropped. The MAM-L missile fell clean from the TB2's wing like a dagger in the dark. Its fins snapping open, its seeker instantly locking on to the laser dot painted on the Cerna's bridge. From 18,000 feet, it entered a shallow arc and began its descent. 43 seconds to impact. No sound, no trail, just a silent predator streaking toward a ship that still believed it was invisible. On the drone monitor, the operator watched calmly. The thermal feed showed troops on deck still pacing, some clustered near the stern, others smoking. One soldier leaned over the railing, another checked his gear, none of them looked up. Then something strange. Several soldiers began tossing crates overboard. Not in panic, but with deliberate care. Crates strapped with flotation colors, stenciled Cyrillic markings. One burst open in midair. Inside, bundled wires, black tool rolls, what looked like demolition kits. They're prepping for recovery. This isn't infantry, it's a sabotage team, one analyst muttered back at UAV command. 28 seconds to impact. In Kyiv, senior officers leaned in toward the screen. They weren't just watching a missile strike, they were watching the unraveling of a covert Russian operation, one Ukraine hadn't been able to prove until now. 15 seconds. On deck, a Russian soldier turned and pointed upward. Maybe he saw a glint. Maybe he heard a faint hiss. His mouth opened. He shouted. Too late. Others reacted. Some ran. A few dove behind crates. One man grabbed the mounted machine gun, but even if he pulled the trigger, it wouldn't matter. The missile was already there. 5 seconds. The operator's crosshairs never wavered. The TB2's laser held steady. Any shake and the missile would veer off course, but the beam was rock solid, locked on the bridge structure. Impact. At 4:48 a.m., the MAM-L missile slammed into the Cerna's midsection. A white flash, a bloom of fire. The thermal feed flared so bright it washed out the screen. The blast struck like a thunderclap. A shock wave rippled across the sea, lifting crewmen off their feet and hurling them into the water like rag dolls. The bridge evaporated in a blink, metal sheared like paper, and a geyser of superheated debris blasted skyward. Through the TB2's thermal lens, human figures glowed white-hot for a split second, then vanished in a swirl of expanding heat. Flames raced down the length of the deck, igniting anything that wasn't already airborne. On screen, one man was seen crawling, then engulfed as a secondary explosion swallowed half the hull in a roar of white plasma. It wasn't just destruction, it was annihilation. The warhead punched through the hull before detonating. The blast ruptured the boat's core. Deck plates curled upward. The bridge vaporized. Shrapnel spun into the sky like hot rain. But then, the secondaries. Massive secondary explosions ripped through the vessel. Not fuel, not ammo. This was something else. White-hot plumes of thermite spewed into the air. Jets of molten metal chemistry, the signature of controlled demolition charges going off inside the cargo hold. This was confirmation. The Cerna wasn't just carrying troops, it was carrying a FSB-engineered sabotage kit, likely meant for infrastructure hits behind Ukrainian lines, power stations, rail bridges, or fuel depots. As the ship cracked in half, the TB2's camera zoomed in. Floating cases, intact, bobbed in the water, surrounded by burning debris. This wasn't just a kill. This was an intelligence jackpot. As fire consumed the Cerna's twisted remains, the drone operator's fingers hovered over the control stick. He had 3 missiles left. 2 more enemy landing craft were already in retreat, one heading north, the other sprinting south. Wide separation, fast speeds. The natural question, why not fire again? He asked the same thing, but the answer wasn't hesitation, it was calculus. The TB2's onboard computer began calculating new fire solutions, but here's the problem. The second Cerna was 12.2 kilometers away, turning fast and pulling away. The third was barely within the outer targeting envelope and now flying a zigzag pattern, a textbook evasive maneuver. The MAM-L is deadly, but not magic. It needs a steady target, a direct line of laser sight, and a stationary drone to keep the laser locked for 40 seconds. And right now, the TB2 was out of position and already losing lock. The operator called it in. Targets have broken. Firing now risks missile drift or mission exposure. Requesting priority. From command, the reply was clear. Negative. Secure site, retrieve evidence. Why? Because in that debris field, floating just offshore, was a bigger prize than 2 boats. Proof. Sealed crates marked with hazardous material codes, electronic components traceable to black market Russian suppliers, uniforms from non-military branches, and encrypted devices already being tracked by NATO SIGINT teams. We don't need to sink the other boats, we need to prove what they were carrying. That meant keeping the drone overhead, securing the wreckage, and not scaring off future targets by showing Ukraine's full hand. If they fired again, they'd not only reveal more drone capability, they might miss. And in warfare, missing publicly can be just as damaging as failing privately. So the TB2 stayed, watching, recording. And the boats fled at max speed, no rescue attempt, no turning back. That silence told its own story. Even Russian commanders knew this op was blown, literally. Within hours, Ukrainian naval teams were dispatched to the site. Divers, salvage boats, and signal intercept teams swarmed the floating wreckage. They weren't just recovering scraps, they were collecting courtroom-level evidence of state-sponsored sabotage. Divers moved in quickly, their headlamps cutting beams through the swirling smoke and oil-streaked water. One of them surfaced clutching a semi-flooded crate with Cyrillic stamps still legible. On deck, an Intel tech popped it open. Inside were 6 waterproof satphones, still powered, their screens blinking an encrypted logon prompt. Another container revealed tactical demo kits, coiled det cord, breaching timers, and EMP modules tagged with black market barcodes traceable to prior attacks in Moldova and Poland. The prize was a device labeled Contact Alpha, a hardened uplink node identical to one used in the sabotage of the Dniester power grid. One NATO advisor reportedly muttered, "This isn't battlefield gear. This is a playbook." And the Russians, they knew it. Back in Sevastopol, a flurry of encrypted orders pulled 3 amphibious vessels back into port. Signals went dark. Special ops flights were grounded. Even drone patrols over Crimea paused for nearly 36 hours. Inside FSB headquarters in Sevastopol, phones rang off the hook. Orders were scrambled. Surveillance tapes were yanked from archives. One officer reportedly deleted entire op logs from the secured network and walked out without saying a word. In Moscow, emergency session convened at the Ministry of Defense. The Cerna wasn't just a sunk boat, it was a black op blown open. Analysts later suggested Putin received the incident briefing at 7 a.m. and said nothing. No public denial, no statement, just silence. The kind of silence that screams. Because if that TB2 could do this once, it could do it again. And next time, no one would get away. The Cerna was gone, but what surfaced from the wreckage changed the war. By mid-morning, Ukrainian special operations divers had reached the site. They moved fast before Russian air or naval patrols could return. What they pulled from the dark sea wasn't just debris, it was proof. Crates, still sealed, still floating. Each one tagged in Cyrillic with codes used by Russia's 6th Independent Sabotage Brigade, a black unit not officially listed in any Russian military register. Inside, demolition timers with NATO-style frequency hopping, miniaturized EMP devices meant to take down transformers, breaching charges, the kind used to collapse tunnels or hydroelectric infrastructure, and waterproof satphones pre-programmed to ping towers deep in Mykolaiv and Odessa. It was everything Ukraine had long suspected but had never been able to prove. That Cerna wasn't on a troop run. It was delivering a sabotage team to the Ukrainian rear, ahead of a larger amphibious feint. But now, that team was dead. Their gear was captured, and their plan was burned down to the waterline. The impact was immediate. NATO intel units swarmed the recovered gear. The U.S. sent a forensic team from Germany within 48 hours. The UK linked the thermite canisters to prior attacks on fiber optic hubs in Poland and Romania. For the first time, Ukraine could walk into an international forum and show physical evidence of Russian sabotage efforts aimed at critical infrastructure outside the declared war zone. Russia's hybrid war just got caught in 4K, one NATO officer said bluntly. And Russia? They went silent. Not just on the Cerna incident, but on everything. Amphibious operations in the western Black Sea ceased. Drone activity over southern Ukraine dropped 67% within a week. The FSB pulled entire units back from Crimea, quietly, without announcement, because they knew the eyes above were watching. Worse, the strike exposed Russia's reliance on predictable routes and legacy doctrine. The TB2 hadn't won just by flying. It won by waiting. That drone cruising quietly at 18,000 feet had dismantled a covert plan months in the making in under 90 seconds. And every military analyst watching, they took notes. The message was simple. You don't need a fleet to win the sea. You just need one drone and the patience to wait for the perfect shot. 2 days later, Ukraine released edited thermal footage of the strike. No narration, no sound, just a silent inferno erupting in the dark. It aired on Ukrainian state TV and quietly went viral in Western defense circles. NATO tightened offshore radar protocols, and across the Russian Naval Command, Cerna-class missions were indefinitely suspended. One drone, one shot, and a covert war was dragged into the daylight.